A third reason that is often cited is that the remaining members in the GRC can cover the duties of the member who has vacated his or her seat, and so voters are none the worse off. And we have just heard from Madam Halima, who has spoken on what has been done in Jurong GRC in this regard. Sir, I think this argument belittles the contributions of elected members, exactly as Professor Teo has said. Ever since my own appointment as a nominated member, I have come to appreciate greatly the heavy duties and burdens of elected members. I, as an unelected member of this House, am utterly dismayed by the suggestion that it is perfectly all right for the remaining members in a GRC to cover the duties of a member who has vacated his or her seat, and that nobody should think twice about it. It trivializes and downplays the contributions of elected members in a way that I think is unfair and unjustified. Do the elected members of this House really stand for this view? What are they saying about what they do? So I do not accept this argument either, and I urge my elected colleagues not to accept it either. I therefore echo the call of Dr. Lu for the whip to be lifted so that the elected members can vote freely on this. Furthermore, as Professor Teo and Dr. Lu have said, how can parliamentary duties be covered by other members? Are those who rely on this argument saying that all elected GRC members in this House are interchangeable? Instead, I would argue that practicality demands a by-election, and certainly in Jurong GRC. Of the 4 remaining members today, 2 are full cabinet ministers. 1 is a senior minister of state in 2 ministries, and the 4th is a veteran backbencher with numerous appointments. It is a question mark whether they can adequately discharge their duties in connection with the vacated seat. Even trying to do so will impose a tremendous burden on them. Just as an example, do we really want to risk overburdening the Minister for Finance in these trying economic times? Surely it would be more practical to call for a by-election to ensure a full complement of elected members in Jurong GRC. Sir, my third P refers to the people. Much has been said about the question of whether a by-election is required in Jurong GRC, in the press, on the internet, and in this House today. But what do the people themselves think? Madam Halima, who is from Jurong GRC, has talked about the MP's discussions with the grassroots leaders in Jurong GRC. But the grassroots leaders are not the people. The Singapore blog site, The Online Citizen, decided to find out what the people thought from the people directly. It conducted a street poll last Saturday to find out whether Singaporeans, and in particular residents of Jurong GRC, think there should be a by-election. I was one of the volunteers who helped conduct the poll, and as I understand it, the results were published a short while ago today. The question asked was a simple one. Quote, Dr. Ong Chik Chong passed away recently. Do you think that there should be a by-election in Jurong GRC? Unquote. A total of 478 Singapore citizens were polled, of which 312 were residents in Jurong GRC and 166 were non-residents. Of these 478 residents, 122 or 25.5% did not know. Of the remainder, 214 respondents, or 60.1% of respondents who had an opinion either way, felt that a by-election should be held in Jurong GRC. 142 respondents, or 39.9% of respondents who had an opinion, disagreed. So much for Singaporeans as a whole. What about Jurong GRC residents? Well, of the 312 residents polled, 85 or 27.2% did not know whether a by-election should be held. 129 residents, or 56.8% of residents who had an opinion, thought that a by-election should be held, while 98 residents, or 43.2% of residents who had an opinion, did not think so. This was a street poll, it was anonymous, it was random, and it does not purport to be statistically valid or representative of Singaporeans or of any group. But I think the results are nevertheless very interesting and very instructive. Putting aside all those respondents who did not have an opinion, and I must say that this was a disturbingly high number, the majority of Singaporeans and the majority of Jurong GRC residents felt that a by-election should be held. Even including those respondents who did not have an opinion, it is quite clear that more Singaporeans and more Jurong GRC residents wanted a by-election than those who did not. Sir, we are here today to debate the nature of democracy in Singapore. Democracy is about the people, about how they have the power. Well, Singaporeans have spoken, the people have spoken, their voice rings loud and clear, and they want a by-election. So on principle, on practicality, and on the basis of the voice of the people, based on these 3 Ps, I believe that a by-election should be held for a GRC whenever there is even a single vacancy, regardless of whether it is the minority member or not. Be that as it may, the issue of whether a by-election should be called when there is a single vacancy in the GRC has been debated before, and I do not expect the government to change its position today. The motion before this House today also advocates a different position. Nevertheless, I support the motion. My position is more expansive than this motion, and so my position encompasses this motion. There is no inconsistency. Just as I believe that there should be a by-election when there is a single vacancy in a GRC, I also believe that there should be a by-election when there is a single vacancy in a GRC caused by the minority member vacating his or her seat. And I also believe that there should be a by-election when half or more of the members in the GRC vacate their seats. I see the motion as a positive move in the right direction, and so I am comfortable supporting it. To me, this motion is fundamentally about setting in place the right principles for calling by-elections when there are vacancies in the GRC, instead of leaving it to the discretion of the government of the day. The motion goes about this in a deliberate and measured manner. It calls for a by-election when it is the minority member who vacates his or her seat. It calls for a by-election when half or more of the members in the GRC vacate their seats. Both propositions are eminently reasonable. It is important to lay these foundations now so that we do not scramble or leave things to discretion if and when the situations envisaged in the second part of the motion arise. We profess to be a forward-looking state. Well, this is too important an issue to not look forward on. We should set the policy now so that we have a consistent approach to such situations moving forward. When the day comes, we will know what to do, and nothing is left to discretion or to chance. Professor Teo has outlined an explanation grounded in logic and in law for why a by-election is required when a minority member in a GRC vacates his or her seat. That must surely be so, given that the fundamental justification and purpose of GRCs is to ensure some minimum amount of minority representation in Parliament. I disagree with Mr. Hari Kumar's comments on this. I cannot see how any other position can be sustainable, as it would severely undercut and undermine the foundations of the GRC scheme. Ms. Sylvia Lim, Madam Halima, and Mr. Hari Kumar have spoken about the potential for a single member in the GRC team to hold the rest of the team, or even the government, to ransom. My short response to that is that the political parties have to select their candidates carefully. Extending their argument further, a group of elected members can get together and blackmail their party. Where do we stop? Party discipline is the mechanism to address this issue, not an imperfect law. Similarly, where half or more of the elected members for a GRC vacate their seats for any reason, then surely there can be no doubt that it is no longer the team that electors have voted for. And surely it cannot be argued that the remaining members can perform the duties of the other members who have vacated their seats. It would stretch reason and credulity to argue that a by-election is not necessary, even if half or more of the elected members for a GRC have vacated their seats. Sir, this motion presents an opportunity for this House to advance the cause of representative democracy in Singapore. I myself support the motion, even if it does not go as far as I would like it. So with that, I support the motion.